Hello, YouTube. This is a new podcast coming out that's called Private Screening with your hosts, Sam and Grant.
Hi.
So this is the new podcast to hit YouTube. It's going to get a whole 200 views and nothing more, but we can always shoot for the stars. But yeah, we are excited. This is our first episode, and we are getting ready to talk about a movie that came out. It's not that good, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, but that's a topic for that's a topic for a podcast following an hour's worth of recording of stuff beforehand. So before we get into any of that, we'll just kind of dive right into this and just see what happens. So I guess before we do anything else, we should kind of introduce ourselves.
I think that's fair.
Hello, I'm Sam. This is what I sound like. I've always kind of, I guess I should kind of start out by explaining myself and what I'm doing here. I've always kind of wanted to do something along the lines of film review in some way, shape, or form on the internet, but for whatever reason, I never really got started. I think the reason I didn't deep down is because I don't have a degree in film. I like to think I'm a student of story and writing because of English class, but I just didn't feel justified to make an entire YouTube channel about reviews because I just didn't feel qualified to talk about it, so it would just feel weird. So that brings me here. So I guess I'll just go about this and see how it goes. This is my first time trying this out. It wouldn't have been possible without the help of my good friend who will be introducing himself in a second. Essentially what I kind of see out of this podcast and where I see it going in the future is just sort of having it as a sort of time capsule at the very least of us reacting to COVID impacting the entertainment industry in real time. So be that by the highs and lows of movie theaters and their updates on commercial management, or just by the new things that streaming services do and the new ones that show up and the ones that they release. I think that's a really cool angle to make a podcast out of, since we've never really seen anything like this before in the 21st century. And yeah, the best movie is Freebirds, and the chicken opening is bad.
Oh, well, that second part we'll debate one day or another. But aside from that, that was actually very well said.
Thank
I
you.
agree with like 98% of what you said.
Which part? What was the other 2.000%?
That little, like those last 8-9 words at the end with the opening of the chicken. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
But
okay.
that
I see.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. That's pretty deep in the lore of this. Of
Maybe we'll just
screening.
Maybe we'll just the end of every private screening episode will just be like the last 30 minutes a debate of the chicken opening, and we'll see how far that gets us.
No, what we got to do like a whole cinematic universe where it's like there's a mid-credit scene somewhere where like we just pause and then it's like a build-up. And
the mid-credit scene will be like Grant finding new evidence. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's like we both keep researching. We both keep researching, and then it's like you can hire like someone else to defend you. I find a new YouTube video that supports my claim, and then like all culminates in like
you make a YouTube video that supports your claim. I make one and pretend I found it from somebody else. It's that kind of thing.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry, I kind of spoiled his name. This is Grant, but it's not. It's not like spoilers. Like his name is Grant.
Yeah. Oh, but, it's a secret. You can't figure it out until you watch at least 3 hours of the show.
Until you watch it twice, and it all makes sense.
It's like a David Fincher film. You gotta go back, look at all the details.
Yeah.
You'll see Brad Pitt
that's what we want you to hear.
Precisely. I'll switch it over. I'll do my intro now, because, of course. But, so yeah, I'm Grant, the second half of this movie reviewing podcast duo.
Yeah,
currently, right now, I'm a freshman up at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. Fine campus, absolutely lovely. Have no complaints. Great place to be. Got to come down here sometime. I don't know. You can maybe catch me on the campus.
This episode is sponsored by Baylor?
No. See, this is very underground. This is like the humble beginnings where it's like, it's just, we work in the garage, and then once you get to like 20 minutes in the movie, then it's like, okay, now we're playing jobs at the local diner. And then the end of the first act is when the talent agent finds us. But we're still
so Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Then, I don't want to interrupt, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Rami Malek goes sings to the guys in the back and it's like, okay, you're in Queen now.
Let's do it.
But, Yeah, so for me, I'm really excited for this podcast because, much like Sam, I actually don't really have that much experience doing stuff like this or working around on computers. I'm not super tech savvy or whatnot, but I'm very excited because I just really want to share my opinions on a bunch of different stuff, be it movies, games, shows, whatnot. I just really want to get my opinion out there. Who knows? Maybe we could like grow this into something a bit bigger and like people will understand like our brand and maybe we could get some people to like follow us, but I think my one main goal is just to really cultivate some good discussions and like have them to keep around. I think you said it really well as like a time capsule. That'll be just really good to
Oh,
look
yeah.
back on. Yeah, so I would
Yeah,
definitely
at the
say,
very least.
of course.
Is
So,
Bohemian Rhapsody worth seeing? By the way, I didn't.
let's see. I watched it. I gave it like a 2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Side note,
Okay.
we're both on Letterboxd. Make
Oh,
sure
yeah,
to
that's
follow
the
us.
only
You
that's the
don't
only
have
place.
to, but it's appreciated because it lets me have 5 more breadcrumbs for my meals. So please
That's
support.
like the,
but you
that's
don't
the
have
only
to.
place you can find us, though.
Yeah, and here, but if you want like more in-depth stuff, like I'd say we're both relatively active there, so you can always
Yeah,
check
maybe
us
a
out.
little too much.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question, Bohemian Rhapsody, it's a fine movie. I personally wouldn't say it's like great. At moments it can be good, sort of, not insanely good. There's a lot of bad editing in that movie. If you're gonna ask
Oh yeah,
me.
that's the one thing I took away from the Oscar buzz. I just saw a bunch of jokey clips,
Oh.
and I wasn't sure if they were like actually from the movie or just edited together, but it did not look good.
Oh no, like if you like see those clips, like it gives you a good impression. Like there's a whole scene where they're like talking at a cafe and that had the editing of a Michael Bay movie. It was like, okay, shot of the drummer,
Yeah,
shot
that's
of
the one
Freddie
I've
Mercury,
seen.
shot of the Asian guy, shot back to Freddie Mercury, and like it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
It kind of gave me a
And
headache.
yeah, it kind of does because like
I don't know.
there's a lot of scenes that really just like have really bad rhythm with its editing. And that's why the Rocket Man movie is better because you can actually see Elton John in frame.
Ah,
So,
okay. Well, if
yes.
that's the reason.
Yes. That explains our introductions and our lore.
Yeah, I
So-
guess the only other thing, like, I guess for anyone who's interested, private screening the name, I guess the working name, what that I'll call it, is just called that because with COVID, we all kind of get our own private screenings of content at home now.
That's fair, that's fair.
I don't know. It could mean something else. That's just kind of what I got from it.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's all the is that all the introduction we need?
I guess so. I mean, a final note I'd say is like this is definitely kind of like a work in progress. This is
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
like a concrete.
We are not
this
professional.
Is it. This is the format. Like we're not changing anything. Like
Yeah.
I think there's definitely going to be room for growing. This is our very first
yeah.
episode, and we're still very inexperienced. So I feel like, and we can like grow upon this. Like who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe someone will be very kind and leave us a comment, and then like we can answer it because we have nobody there right now.
I hope
even though
we
it's our
get
first episode.
I hope we get an Among Us joke.
Ugh. We get a reference. Put Among Us? No.
Among Us. Okay, I don't want to be that guy though.
No, if we do get
what
Among
else?
Us, though, then we exploit the YouTube algorithm and we get more views.
We get inverted
sponsorships.
views. Yes, we gain popularity by dislike.
And
Yeah, I guess my goal with this as we grow, I understand that I outside of like a film club and just various other tech experiences from school, I don't have any like experience in cinema. So I understand that you should not
Yeah.
take anything I say as scripture because it's not. This is just me, and like this is just me as like a casual observer of everything.
yeah, I think that's very fair.
entertainment-wise. Yeah, my goal is just I don't have a degree in filmography. I do not want to be a jerk on the internet. That's my goal.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with a lot of that stuff. Like, don't, like, when you come here, don't say this is like, okay, this is it. When I say that this movie is a 4 out of 5, that's it. That's
It
final.
is.
You can't change it. That's what I said. That's not how it's going to work. I think this is just, here's our input. Here's how we think.
Yeah.
Here's what we observe from this. This is our thought process. This is what we like. This is what we don't like. I think it's just kind of putting our names out there for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna it's not gonna be some like super crazy analysis, but like we'll try because we definitely
Oh, yeah.
enjoy our films. But like, if you're looking like okay, here's the backstage drama. Like we have like no access to anything. All I have is
Yeah.
like a $50 microphone off of Amazon. So To be honest, this is more
Bear
down
with
earth.
us.
This is just the vibe zone. So
This is the vibing. This is the man cave from the cruise too. This is where we
Yes.
whisk all of our troubles away into oblivion. Oh yeah, sorry. I guess we'll start simple. We might branch off into TV shows for now. The main
Yeah.
topics at point are just going to be like
yeah, like we just have
Films.
like one movie.
mostly
some other
stuff like
topics.
like the running theme here. I think might just be stuff as a result of or because of COVID.
Yeah,
So we'll start here
because I think the
and just
problem
kind
is
of
that
work our way into there.
yeah, I think it's just that's like since we're jumping into this right now, like we kind of gotta play catch up and like before we can like okay,
Yeah.
here's the movies of back then. Like first we have to get through kind of just like catching up and like
Yeah, where are
Yeah.
we?
exactly. I think that's a good point.
This is a long
And-
preamble, isn't it?
yeah, like we
Yeah,
spent
sorry.
like 17 minutes already, but. Last thing, like you said as well, like who knows, we might try some other stuff, maybe talk about video games, TV shows, or anything else that we picked
B-Stars.
up on.
Season 2.
Okay, yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but
3-hour analysis podcast.
no, it's longer than it's longer than both seasons. You don't want to open that can of worms. Not episode
Fine,
one.
fine,
That's-
fine,
that's too
fine,
far.
fine.
But point is, you may branch out, but for now, movie.
We'll start simple. Speaking of COVID, which is the running theme, I guess we'll just dive right into this.
Go for it.
In recent news regarding Texas theaters in relation to COVID, Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, as we all know, recently opened a mandate saying that businesses can decide whether or not the mask mandate has essentially been lifted. So businesses
Yes.
can decide whether or not they will require masks from now on. We'll see how that goes. That's not what this is about. What this is
Right.
about is a second mandate on March 2nd. So this was like Tuesday
Right,
from
this is March 6th.
Governor Greg Abbott filed in the office of the Secretary of State at 1:15 Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, yada, yada, yada. What it basically says is that it's an executive order relating to the opening of Texas in response to the COVID-19 disaster. And it's specifically for independent businesses such as theaters, so I found it relevant. So I'll just kind of summarize it in a too long, didn't read kind of sentence.
Okay.
Strongly encouraged to use good faith efforts and available resources to follow the Texas Department of State Health Services. So nursing homes, state-supported living centers, assisted living facilities are still socially distanced, but what I'm trying to say is big businesses such as theaters and stores and stuff like that are allowed to open their doors again, basically, from what this is saying, and kind of decide whether or not they are mask required or not. See, I told you this was kind of a learning curve. I didn't have to
Yeah.
read all of that. But yeah, that's basically the newest thing. Again, it's going into effect not now, but the 10th. So that's
Right.
like a Wednesday, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah, so I don't... This might range different distances in your own ballpark as to how okay this is. I'm not sure in regards to theaters. I honestly don't know if this is going to change much. It might.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, that is a good point, because basically, in a nutshell, to make it easier, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's basically saying, okay, big businesses, you're not required to make masks anymore. That's your choice. If you want to, if you still want to enforce it, that's your choice. If you want to get rid of it, that's also your choice. That's what I'm gleaming off of this.
Yeah, so it's going to be... We don't even know what individual theaters have signed off on this yet. We just know that
Right.
this is a thing that has happened. A lot of things, like I'm pretty sure AMC has still... I know Alamo Drafthouse has still required masks. I'm not sure about stuff like big, like AMC,
Studio Movie Grill,
Yeah,
Cinemark.
but yeah, the basic gist is that Texas businesses will be able to reopen following this mandate being put into effect.
Got it. Well, that is definitely a good talking point.
Yeah, and
But,
yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. See, what I was gonna say... oh, no, I just stopped. But, what I was gonna get at was, I think it will definitely be interesting, because this is gonna be, like, a big next step to see how COVID's played out, because it's kind of like been a year since all of this started. To my knowledge.
Basically. Like he said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the resource itself said that this was a thing since, in Texas, this had been a thing since March 16th, 2020. So almost a full year. Like, we're 10 days off of the full year at the time of us recording this.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just, it's just been a wide range of highs and lows that I'm sure a lot of businesses and, the good old US of A are very anxious to get out of.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of my own personal feelings about it, I don't know if it's really the right thing to do given the context. But honestly, all things considered, I think this will be more interesting in regards to the business's response to this more than individual people's. Because whether or not the turnout is bigger or not following this is besides the point if theaters based in Texas and all over the United States, assuming other states follow in suit to this act, choose to make themselves not mask required or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think this will. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, just like this will be more telling of the businesses than it is like the customers.
Right. And yeah, like, and even so, like, even if they don't like, if they still enforce a mask system, like, theaters nowadays still have a relatively reliable system when it comes to, like, masking, because it's, like, just wear a mask the entire time, except for, like, when you're eating and drinking.
Yeah.
Which is, like, pretty much, like, the standard protocol, like, even here on campus, like, when you're at a cafeteria, that's essentially how it works, where it's, like, keep your mask on except when you eat and drink. So, like, theaters have it pretty much pat down to a T, and, like, they have a good cleaning system as well from most of the theaters I've been to since COVID hit. So... And it's definitely been good for some theaters that, like, I remember at Cinemark over the summer before I went to campus, one way they really did a good job was that it's like they played a bunch of old movies and you only had to pay like $5 for a ticket. So I got to see Mad Max Fury Road for the first time in like a big theater, and that was a really good movie. Yeah.
So was it like, sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I was kind of wrapping up. Yeah, sorry. But, like, I think it was really good, and I think if more studios, theaters, whatnots, if they can, like, implement that a little bit more, I feel like that'd be really helpful, because, like, that's a really fun experience, and at such a cheap price, it's such an easy way to just draw in more people in a time when business seems kind of lacking due to the circumstances.
Yeah, that might be the extra kind of, if this is something that goes through, well, it is something that's going through, but if it's something that becomes, like, something that really draws in more people, then, like you said, that might be a good move on behalf of theaters across the states, I guess, to just kind of draw in more people than they would if they just kind of stayed silent and let them shuffle back in. Because if they do that, we're not going to get a lot of people right away, given all the streaming services that they have access to, even if we do get a couple hundred or something.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, is that our segue?
Yeah, I guess, do you want to, like, go over where you think theaters are beyond that in regards to that versus their streaming services? I know...
Kind of set the stage? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, like, I definitely think right now this is a very, very big shift for theaters, especially considering how this played out because of streaming services. Because since theaters have closed down, it's been pretty obvious that, like, a new shift when it comes to movie distribution towards, like, the public is streaming services. Because, you know, back in the day it was like, okay, Netflix, and that's it. But now, like, more people have started to kind of figure out, okay, like, streaming services are the new come-up. It's not like cable TV and then you had streaming services. It's like streaming services are now new cable TV. It's like...
Yeah, there are no longer 3 channels.
And we have, like, families. It's like, okay, we don't have to worry about DirecTV or Dish. Now we have to worry about, do we want Netflix? Do we want Hulu? Do we want New Brand Plus? So it's definitely... And I think this is a very telling year for streaming services because this is where everyone's really going to start experimenting. Because, like, before COVID and all that, there was, like, Netflix, Hulu... And that was kind of it. There might have been a few others, but Netflix and Hulu were the only big ones. Yeah. But then Disney
fast forward to now.
Yeah, and now it's like all over the place. Like Disney has Disney Plus, and that's been like taking over and could potentially rival Netflix. HBO Max has a bunch of their shows and other stuff on HBO Max. Plus, they have that system of you get to watch all these movies immediately for no extra cost, which we get into one of those. But that's just a little
Disney doesn't do that.
But yeah, like there's definitely been a huge just kind of outbreak, pardon the pun, of like more streaming services, and like everyone just kind of wants a piece of that Netflix pie. And honestly, it makes sense considering how Netflix is pretty much a top brand when it comes to entertainment. So I think it's definitely one thing will be which brands can like stay alive and help make their brand grow versus who's going to kind of get weeded out and it's going to like fade away in the past. And another thing that's kind of interesting is how are like movies going to play a part? Because like you have stuff like the world famous Trolls World Tour and Scoob, beloved classics.
Ooh,
but it's interesting because it was like a very delicious indeed. But it's interesting because they both played that role of like, okay, instead of going to theaters, just pay $15 and you can get it right at your home.
Yeah, it was so so left field.
Mm-hmm. And like Disney Plus also picked it up, except they made it worse because they put out worse movies and charged you double the price. So
yeah,
naughty Disney, naughty. We don't like that. We don't like that. So, but I definitely think that with these new streaming services, like, are there going to be new trends? What's it going to look like when theaters go air quotes back to normal? Like, is they going to kind of revert back to the original state?
Yeah, is it going to go back to normal?
Actually leave an imprint. And yeah, so sorry about that.
Oh no, you're all good. That was actually really interesting, and I think the last part about theaters also really rings true. Because theaters have kind of done stuff in the past couple of months to kind of change the system up a bit. Honestly, in the first like 3 months or so, the only thing that I noticed when I was gathering data for like a school research project that they were really doing was just sort of scrambling, trying to stay afloat. If you look back in March of 2020, you'll notice that AMC was one of a lot of theaters that filed for the CARES Act that would help them stay afloat with extra funds that they could pay their employees with. And a lot of theaters right now were back then,
right?
He said, looking at 2019, a year ago, I'm sorry, could really use that because a lot of theaters, they were just trying to stay alive, and quite a few of them didn't. Studio Movie Grill filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which doesn't mean they're going to close, but they are going to reorganize themselves management-wise. And AMC actually warned that it could be filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So right now, they're trying to rearrange all their stock holdings and their splits with their holders so they don't, like, go under. So really, I think a lot of the theater activity has mostly been reactionary and just kind of trying to stay alive. In terms of what they could actually do differently, you kind of talked about it one time. One interesting direction they could go down, and this might sound crazy at the time that we're recording this, but maybe come back if we're right. Maybe just like you kind of described it better, but like video game rental in the theater or something.
Like explain that.
Yeah.
So like, I think I saw this at like Cinemark back in Dallas, my hometown, but I saw this thing where it's like what you can do is like with theaters you got like 16 different like showrooms. But you don't have enough movies, obviously, right now because of, like, the drought and COVID's really kind of squeezed the movie release schedule. So, what theaters do, at least I noticed with Cinemark, is that they do this deal where it's like, okay, pay us, like, $200, and, like, you and 6 of your friends can, like, watch a movie that of your choice to a theater all by yourself. Or for, like, 2 hours, like, we'll hook up a video game console, and you can just, like, play Smash Brothers on the movie screen. And so, and it's been like, I've heard it, from what I've heard, it's been very like successful. Like people actually do it. I've seen people really take advantage of it. And it's a very unique and interesting opportunity that makes me wonder, are theaters like maybe going to shift and say, okay, instead of like playing this random movie that gets us like 3 tickets a showing, what if like we kept that theater open for the private screening? I know that like some theaters do that for like birthdays and you could like schedule in advance, but I wonder if that's going to be something that they pick up on. Or if they already have implemented it, and COVID's just kind of brought it out to the forefront.
That and kind of the $5 classic movie that you mentioned are kind of both really good examples of things that theaters can do to stay kind of relevant as this like point of development rages on. Another thing that has kind of been happening, or so I've heard. But another thing that's been happening is that they've kind of been downsizing like the scope of their theaters to kind of suit COVID more, and they've just been outsourcing stuff that doesn't get as much attention right now, like concessions to other stuff altogether, to kind of draw in a larger profit. So like popcorn, if you go to a grocery store, you might find some AMC popcorn in there or something along those lines. So that to me kind of shows or tells me that movie theaters do kind of have a good idea of what they're doing and how they want to do it. It's just going to kind of be a question of if they really implement any worthwhile changes. And we can only wait and see. But any worthwhile changes versus like just, oh, this row is off limits because of COVID and this one is not. And oh, our staff have masks now.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of interesting to see how all of that is going to play out in the future. So,
and honestly, I honestly don't know how far. I honestly don't know if this streaming service advantage with COVID will last that long after COVID, because the reason we're going to talk about HBO Max later, but the reason HBO Max is releasing all of its movies is getting a lot of movies released is because the production staff or distribution staff just doesn't want them screening in theaters because they're not going to rake in as much of a profit. As soon as COVID-19 goes away, I'm going to be real. I don't know if that same thing is going to happen when theaters are now not a streaming venue, but a screening venue that can rake in the same amount of profit, if not more so, because with streaming services, payments and revenue is measured by subscription, whereas with individual movies in theaters, it's measured by tickets. So, thinking out loud, and I might be wrong again, it seems like as soon as COVID-19 is passed, and if theaters can hold out, things might just go back to the way they were, albeit with slight changes. Like, the video game thing that you mentioned and other stuff that they learned throughout the years. And maybe drive-in theaters will become more popular. But honestly, I don't know if streaming services will remain as big as they were in, like, the months March through June.
Right. Because I think it's all going to essentially boil down to, like, when COVID goes away and then we start to shift back to, like, a normal status. Because it's like, was this just kind of a fad? And it was like, okay, remember the crazy year we had? And, like, all the people wanted to get some Netflix, but they couldn't? Or is it, like, actually going to, like, change? And this is, like, definitely a way that's, like, really revolutionized how we see the entertainment industry. Or, like, more people going to just start doing subscription stuff and, like, cut out other companies like DirecTV altogether. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's still developing, like, right now as we're speaking.
Yeah,
like,
time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. Time will tell, and, like, we'll see, is it a fad, or is it forever?
Who knows?
A valiant effort, Mr. Bond. However, you forgot to pay the $10 fee for this month. Go away.
A valiant effort, Mr. Bond. However, you may not watch Raya and the Last Dragon because you did not pay the $30 fee.
Oh, but I have free subscription, so I bypassed the $30 fee.
But yeah, is there anything else worth talking about right now?
I
that's
mean,
kind of where we are, and that's kind of what we think.
Right, with, like, just kind of, like, streaming services in general. I mean, I don't have, like, super crazy personal hands-on experience with streaming services. I only really have Netflix, Hulu, and HBO Max. So, I'm not, like, I have, like, different experiences, and, like, there's different variety, and I can, like, say some of the pros and cons I have with each one. But, like, don't go to me where it's like, okay, like, is it worth getting Apple TV Plus? Like, I didn't even know Apple TV Plus had a subscription service until, like, a month ago or something. But, yeah, like, overall, it's pretty interesting. But we will see how it all plays out in the future.
Speaking of streaming services.
Ooh, which one?
Quite a few things have happened since, the beginning of the streaming service renaissance, as I like to call it. I guess the big thing that's especially relevant now is the rise of a new big one. We have Disney Plus, we have HBO Max, but riddle me this, Grant. Have you heard of CBS Paramount Plus?
Paramount Plus? Whatever could it be?
Paramount Plus, glad you asked, good sir. Thank you so much for humoring my inquiry of statement with a question. Paramount Plus, founded March 4th, 2021, with currently around 8 million users as of November 5th, 2020, is another streaming service in the same vein, basically, as HBO Max and Disney Plus. I do not have it, so I cannot give a good assessment of it at all.
Nor do I.
But this has essentially become the go-to venue for stuff like Star Trek, for stuff like this is the SpongeBob hub. This is the place where people go, and it's now the competing representative for Paramount in terms of their entertainment. So that's something worth bringing up. I guess this kind of makes me wonder whether or not this is going to be something we see with all studios and not just Warner Brothers, Disney, and Paramount.
Like, will more studios adopt that business model?
Yeah, adopt that business model of just having, just a streaming service on the side, Can't get to our stuff, you can just go.
Yeah, so it's like, like A24.
Yeah, honestly. And another thing that they are doing with Paramount Plus is you can stream, your local CBS station, so you can get the news on this thing, too.
Oh, wow, that's actually a good feature to have on there, so.
But yeah, that's the other big thing. Beyond that, business as usual in like the realm of streaming services, and then just capitalizing on everything. Have you seen a lot of Peacock ads recently on YouTube?
Yeah, for me, it's actually been Paramount Plus. Like, I've been noticing for most of my YouTube videos, it's like, oh, Paramount Plus, you can watch Nickelodeon on it, and like, but I got YouTube, so why do I need
Camp
that?
Coral, you never know.
It's the good one, not the original SpongeBob, because I'm new.
That's
a whole
yeah,
can of worms.
but beyond that, you kind of get the general gist. I know we got more Disney Plus stuff, namely Raya. Have not checked out any of that.
Me either, because I don't have Disney Plus, so no WandaVision spoilers, even though that's all.
No WandaVision spoilers in the chat.
Don't
Netflix.
say it. Don't give me the out of context spoilers that I'm not going to understand either way.
Oh yeah. So. Maybe just don't go on the comments if that's the case.
Just don't go on the internet.
Yeah, Disney Plus. I guess the only other big one that's really interesting right now is HBO Max, which is, if you don't know, Batman, Game of Thrones, Sesame Street, Friends, and other big things.
Like The Sopranos.
They are the ones that are kind of the most adamant in terms of, or active is probably the better word, in terms of releasing content that would have originally gone to theaters on this streaming service to ensure a big audience.
Yeah,
so this is where
draws.
Yeah, they began their experiment back in, was their first movie Wonder Woman 1984? I think it was.
I think so as well. Because that was like a big thing they were doing with all the promotional material where it's like, okay, on Christmas Day, Wonder Woman's coming out and you can watch it at home. And,
see it Christmas Day in the comfort of your home.
Exactly. Who needs presents when you can just watch Wonder Woman 84?
Who needs new socks when, you can wish you were baking them instead of watching Wonder Woman 1984?
Christmas can be good, but can be better.
Of course. Yeah, I guess that's $15 a month, right?
Roughly speaking, I think so. But, then again, the big deal is, all these, new movies you would have had to pay for, you don't have to pay for them at all. You get it right here for, a month.
You have you have more HBO Max experience than I do. Is it good? Is it worth it at this point in time? Can you say? Yeah.
Okay. I haven't done a whole lot on it, but I will say from my experience, overall speaking, I think it's a decent service, and I would say, if I had to rank it, I would put it up there. If I had to rank my 3 services, I'd say Netflix is the best, and then content-wise, I'd probably say...
We all know why that is.
Obviously, the pioneer. But, content-wise, I'd say HBO Max is better than Hulu, but like
Okay.
when it comes to like interface and like user-friendly like interacting, I'd probably give that to Hulu over HBO Max because it's like with HBO Max, the only stuff I remember was like the only stuff I watched was South Park, Mob Psycho 100, and then the movie we talk about tonight. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No spoilers.
Oh, but yeah. So I think overall, like content speaking, I think it's actually very promising. There's like other stuff on there that I want to check out, like The Sopranos. So, but my one issue I have with that service is that like its UI is a bit hard to navigate, like because compared to Netflix, Netflix does a really good job when it comes to like shows and stuff. Because it's like, okay, you finish that episode, you can like pull up the entire show list straight up from like the bottom bar like seamlessly, and you can jump from episode to episode with like zero hassle. HBO Max is just weird because it just doesn't have that feature. It's like, okay, you gotta like wait to the credits, and then you gotta wait for the show to automatically pull up the next episode, and then you gotta click it. And so I don't think it's gonna kill it when it's like a first viewing of something and you're just going episode by episode. But I feel like it does kind of break up the flow just a little bit when it's like, okay, I gotta get out of that episode, and then I gotta like pick the next season, then I gotta pick the next episode. It's worse too with shows that have a lot of seasons, like South Park, because it's like you gotta scroll over to a bar and then you gotta like open another list to get to the right season. It can be a bit of a hassle and more to like just navigate around, but it's not like a big deal breaker. Like, yeah, it does kind of put it a step down to your usual streaming service, but again, it doesn't kill it.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't considered with the TV shows. I kind of just, I always thought of it more as that kind of go-to place for new movies. Hulu is my kind of default station for shows. Like,
yeah, it's fair.
My dad introduced me to Frasier, so I'm watching a lot of Frasier on Hulu, and that's fun. But yeah, I hadn't considered that navigating episode to episode would be a problem.
Right.
That actually kind of caught me off guard.
Because I think Netflix does it so well, so like when you see someone else just like
flounder
with that, you're like, oh, okay, I was kind of taking that feature of Netflix for granted. So
yeah, it's kind of that idea of just like
right.
one thing is so good, I guess, that you kind of become spoiled. Like I was, I guess, when I watched Hulu and that same thing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really judge HBO Max, I guess, because their big stuff isn't really out yet. There's a lot of upcoming stuff that we can't really judge yet.
Right.
Like the Snyder cuts.
Oh no.
We live in a society.
You got something to say about the Snyder cut, Grant?
I'm ready to waste 4 hours of my life sitting at my desk chair, staring at my laptop, and then watching people say it's a misunderstood masterpiece, and I'm just gonna sit there with my hands in my head, and I'm gonna cry because it's not good. I don't want to do it. No.
And we don't want to throw shade or judge a movie before it's out.
Knowing the track record, I'm like, I don't
have any faith.
Okay, I'm just gonna get like real for a quick second. I don't have anything against Zack Snyder. He seems like a cool guy. He seems very passionate. I respect that. But your movies, Zachary, they're not good.
Your movies, dude.
I can't see the picture. Like it doesn't make sense. But why did Superman leave only to come back for no reason? Like, why is Batman v Superman?
These are the things you got to think about. Yeah,
I
don't know.
Batman v Superman, like, why is it good? Someone that thinks Batman v Superman is a good movie, I would like an essay in the comments. I want cited sources. I want MLA formatting, and I want a creative title. All right?
Yes.
That's your assignment for this episode.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but for real.
I don't want to say that I'm biased. It's just that, like, if I see you go all in with the DCU and you screw up all 2 1/4 of those times, I just think you're bad at making DC movies. It's just mathematically the more likely conclusion to make.
And I mean, I like, most of my experience with Zack Snyder, I've seen 4 of his movies, and 3 of them are DC. Is Watchmen DC?
Is Watchmen DC?
Or was that like a outside, like, not Marvel,
Oh no,
not DC?
I know Watchmen was like made partially under the studio DC. I don't think it was originally
Like a
DC
full DC,
comic.
okay. So,
I'm
like,
not a Watchmen expert though, so
Okay. But, like, most of his stuff is, like, comic book stuff, right?
is Sucker Punch?
Sucker Punch is an original screenplay, and, I, like, there's not a lot of movies I can say, like, I sat through that movie and I felt like I didn't even watch the movie, but Sucker Punch is one of those. It's, it's not good.
Yeah.
Don't
But-
like it.
But
like it
I
very
guess
good.
going back to the Snyder cut, it's for those of you who don't know, it's the Zack Snyder's original vision for Justice League without
Right.
Joss Whedon. It's going to be like how long?
4 hours with
4
6 chapters.
That's crazy. I guess there's an audience for that because enough people asked about it.
No, nag's
So we
better,
I guess we
so.
eventually got it. I don't think it's going to be good. I thought Justice League was one of the worst things ever.
that's
And
fair,
I
that's
think
fair.
I don't think all of that is Joss Whedon's fault. I think Zack Snyder, as visionary as much of a visionary as he might be, isn't really as strong, to put it nicely, at all as he is when it comes to writing things that are even remotely interesting beyond the vague, deep, heaviest quotes, thematic statement. So
definitely.
fingers crossed. I'm hoping that it'll at least as a kind of I don't know, as it's cool that it exists at all, kind of a director's individual vision independent of the studio. In that context, I guess it'll be cool that it exists at all and wasn't just shelved. But the movie Justice League that I know was poorly written, and it wasn't
Yeah.
after Joss Whedon came on. So I feel like with the one that we got in 2017, you just kind of had a terrible, disgusting, soggy burritos worth of 2 bad visions. With the elimination of Joss Whedon, I'm afraid that we're just going to get the other bad version dialed up to 90.
Yeah, and it's, like, bad because, like, when you see the people on the internet that, like, love Zack Snyder, it's like, dude, every movie he's made, the only bad movie he made was Justice League, and that was all Warner Brothers' fault. And then we're gonna get here in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna watch them say, "Oh, it's a masterpiece, it's a masterpiece," and I don't get it. I do not understand why these movies are so well received by these people. My problem oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just gonna say my one problem with Zack, if I had to, like, sum it up with his movies, is that, like, I feel like he just doesn't get the characters. Like, when I'm watching Man of Steel, I'm like, is this Superman? Is that him? I don't feel like it's him. It's kind of weird, kind of different. I get that there's, like, different interpretations, but I feel like there's take Spider-Man. I know this is, like, a whole other episode. We're not gonna get into that, but, like, you look at Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and then you hold him up to Tom Holland, the MCU Spider-Man. Like, they are not the same character. They have very different, like, backstories and just, like, narratives. But when you kind of, like, boil it down at the end of the day, they're Spider-Man. Like, it's like, he's Spider-Man and he's Spider-Man. I can see that while they have very different ways of expressing that, at their core, they are Spider-Man. I can't say that with, like, Snyder's version of Batman and Superman. Like, when I watch Batman v Superman and there's the dream sequence of Batman in the middle of the desert and it's like, okay, here's the box. Wait a minute. You're a bad guy. And then he just gets in, like, a fight in the middle of the desert with guns. I'm like, that's not Batman. That's a misunderstanding of Batman's character, and I cannot agree with you for that. So, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't think you understand what you're doing. You use that character, and yet I feel like you don't understand what that character is.
And I guess I should say, if you like Zack Snyder movies that much, that's fine. You're allowed to like anything, and I would never fault anyone for having, like, a personal preference over a movie.
Of course.
But I don't know how much you like a movie and how you would actually describe a movie critically are two completely different things. And
Of course.
I'm sorry, but even if I could like Zack Snyder movies, I just think that any character-driven movie that does a bad job personifying and fleshing out its characters in a satisfying way is a bad character-driven movie.
Oh, absolutely. Well said. Well said.
Yeah. So I guess we don't have hope for the. I would love it to wow me, but yeah,
If it's not
wait
fun,
for Batman.
why bother?
Just wait for Joker 2.
Ooh.
I guess the other big piece of HBO Max news, because like the only movie, the only other movie besides what we're going to talk about, the only other movie that they have released right now is Wonder Woman 1984. They have some upcoming ones. They have the big blockbuster one that everyone's talking about is Kong v Godzilla, which, by the way, Kong is going to win.
He will.
Big monkey all the way, and that's a fact.
That's it.
But the other big thing is Space Jam, A New Legacy. And I bring this up because as of March 4th, Thursday, 2021, I was doing my own thing when lo and behold, a certain Grant texted me at about like 2:20 and said they released new images of Space Jam. And I checked, and yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So I guess, wow. So I don't even know where to start with this one.
I know how to get this
Space
one
Jam
going.
is the next big thing that they've announced, and it's weird with the advertising. I've seen like they made that Xbox commercial promotion.
Oh yeah,
thing.
the lighting with that.
Yeah, back
It's
in the
kinda
day,
huge.
and that one had
Yeah.
2D animation, like Flash. But the images that were released, which if you haven't seen them, look them up. It's pretty easy to find. It's in like the Entertainment Weekly magazine.
Yeah, it's like the big.
All of those seem to be in 3D, akin to like those newer throwback Looney Tunes cartoons with Wile E. Coyote or Daffy's Rhapsody or something like that.
Right.
And it's extra interesting too because I looked more into it, and they still might be leaning into 2D animation as well because they've hired some of the designers who previously worked on some 2D stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's raised more questions than it has answered for me. The actual thing looks pretty good though.
Yeah. Oh, so like maybe it could be like that Sponge Out of Water movie with SpongeBob, where it's like for the most part of that movie it was like 2D and underwater.
Oh, yeah.
But then like the third act was like a shift to like 3D animation, and they were like in the real
Yeah,
world.
it was.
So like maybe it could pull that off. I think that's an interesting idea.
Maybe.
The only thing I'm taking away from the images is that the graphics on Bugs look pretty good, so I'm not going to complain. Good graphics. Looks very 8K on the new Xbox Series X by Microsoft. Made by Bill Gates himself, so...
Bill Gates himself smiled.
Yes, he put his stamp on the image, but we can't find it yet. That's an Easter egg.
No, we will though. We will.
Oh, yeah, we will. So...
Just like how we'll find the Snyder Cut someday.
Yes. There was
We'll
also...
find a good Zack Snyder movie. Don't worry.
Oh, definitely. There was also one other movie, was Mortal Kombat, I think, was also on HBO's lineup.
Yeah.
But, like, that's it to my knowledge. Like, the only big movies are Space Jam, Kong v Godzilla, and Mortal Kombat. But...
And there's some more stuff in there, too. But
Yeah. So... And then there was
I guess-
that other movie.
What?
The other one that came out that we were going to talk about.
Oh.
I mean, do we get into
There
that
is
now,
always
or-
that venue. Do you have... I don't really want to... I'm kind of scared of that movie, Grant. Is there anything else you want to say about Space Jam 2 before we move on? Do you know what the plot is?
I mean, okay, yeah, I guess we can do a little bit more Space Jam 2. Don't want to jump off of it too quick, but...
I don't know. I'm trying to stall for as long as I can
Yeah.
because it's that
Let's hit the
movie.
1 hour mark before we get into the meat of thing.
Yeah, so
But-
I guess expectations, predictions, because I don't have a strong attachment to Space Jam, but I kind
Neither
of
do I. Okay.
I've seen it.
Yeah, all right. I'll give my take on this situation. But so here's what I'm saying. Like, if I understand the plot or like the synopsis or whatever, I read up where it was like LeBron James and his son get sent to the internet, and then if I understand correctly, the antagonist is like Don Cheadle, who's like an evil AI or something.
I think he's like an algorithm.
Yeah, like an algorithm or whatnot. And it's like, yes, I am the internet, but evil, and I will trap you in the internet dimension. But then, for whatever reason, the Looney Tunes are going to get involved, and then like because plot, they have to play a basketball game to like save LeBron or something. And it's like,
Yes, there are no aliens this time.
right, yeah, and like to give a little bit of review of the original Space Jam, I like it. I don't think it's really a good movie, but like it's an experience to say the least. But I think when it came to that movie's plot, I kind of liked it because it was like it was good because like it had a nice connection where it's like, okay, so there's the normal world and then there's the Looney Tune world, and like yeah, it's very flimsy, and like you could poke a bunch of holes. Like, oh yeah, he gets transported because he gets pulled through the golf course. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that like it's a dumb kids movie that you're like, what even? But like it works because it's like, okay, it establishes that there's two different worlds. Like it establishes the Looney Tune world. There's like a threat with the aliens, and you know like they're going to have to work at that theme park if they lose the basketball game, and then there's the whole twist. But like I feel like for its plot, as crazy as it is, when it gets that setup of, okay, Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes have to play NBA All-Star Aliens, I'm like,
basketball.
Yeah, basketball. Like, when we get there, it's not, like, terrible. I'm like, okay, this is just so convoluted. Like, it's silly, but when it gets there, like, it feels like it kind of checks out. Right?
Okay.
But it's like, and that's the thing that I'm wondering with this new movie is, like, is the internet thing going to work? Because, like, are the Looney Tunes going to have their own world again, and then, like, they also get sent to the internet? Or is there going to be some random thing where it's, like, LeBron is like, oh, I remember when I was a kid, I used to play with, like, I used to watch Looney Tunes, and then, like, for whatever reason, the Looney Tunes are, like, the helpers of LeBron, and then, like, they make up his team? So,
I don't know. Honestly,
I just want to see a trailer.
A lot.
Like,
we need the trailer.
Yeah, I want to see, like, the stuff in action, because it's like, this is giving me flashbacks to like Captain Marvel, because I remember Captain Marvel went through like this exact same thing where it's like in September before her movie came out in February, it's like, okay, here's like 5 pictures, and then like a month later a trailer came out. So I just want to see like, what does it look like, how is it gonna like handle, what's like a general idea of the plot, because trailers today give away the plot. So I just want to see a trailer. I just want to see a little bit of it in action. Looney Tunes back in action, I should say. But, little film humor for you. But, end of the day, I just want a trailer, and then we can go from there.
So what you're saying is we have to wait another month before we get the official Space Jam New Legacy trailer?
I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to be a month. When does it release again?
July, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I would think, like, soon, like by the end of April, we'd get a trailer. Because
okay, I can
at least in May. By May, we should have a trailer. If not, then the marketing team's done a terrible job. But I feel like late March to mid-April is going to be like prime time to drop the first trailer. So I guess we'll just have to see how that shakes out.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to say honestly, because I've said that too much in the 54 minutes that we've had together. So
oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
To tell you the truth, I didn't like Space Jam. I'm kind of nervous about this one because one important plot detail that is worth noting is that LeBron James and did I say Michael Jordan or LeBron? I said LeBron. LeBron James and the Looney Tunes are going to go back through the Warner Bros. Film catalog. So that means Batman, King Kong, etc.
Oh.
And hearing that, I am very, very nervous because to me, that kind of sounds like Warner Brothers pulling a Babu frickin' Ralph Breaks the Internet and kind of going like, here's our old property, Batman, Looney Tunes, like that's all we got. That's the movie. We're just going to go back through and kind of reference all this older stuff we have. And I guess that just kind of comes with the modern paint that they're working with. But that's kind of what I'm afraid of. I guess the other thing worth noting is that the original Space Jam was made in the 90s. This one's made in the 21st century. I don't think it's going to be nearly as... It's not going to capture the 90s spirit at all.
Oh, no.
Of the original.
Because, like, the reason the original worked was, like, how absolutely, like, insane turn your brain off it was.
Yeah, it's
Or-
literally a Nike's commercial.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it is a Nike commercial. The most drawn out high-budget Nike commercial.
How did it get made?
Yeah, I mean, who was in the writing room that day? No blank.
How many writers did Space Jam have?
I don't know. Let me look that up.
I bet it had like more than 3, actually.
Let me see.
In fact, I'm pretty sure it was like 4 or something.
Space Jam writer. Okay.
But yeah,
4.
fingers crossed.
Yeah. Space Jam.
I don't need it to wow
screenplay,
me.
4 writers. Oh my.
Oh geez, it was 4?
Yeah. 4 writers.
Wow. Okay. I don't need it to wow me. It's not going to wow me.
I don't-
Space
yeah.
Jam. I don't want it to be
Awful.
grueling.
Yeah. So.
Speaking of grueling,
Is it time? The main event?
yes. So,
right.
would you like to introduce this? Would you like?
I guess so. Just like what the movie is, and like some background, like where I'm at when it comes before we delve into it.
Yeah, you have a larger stake in the game than I do, Grant.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. I'll build it up. Here we go. Main event for the
The
first.
second HBO Max movie.
Yeah, I think so.
that was
Well, there might have
released.
been others. I think there was that one, Judas and the Black Messiah, that came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I'm sorry.
I heard there was a lot of really good things about that movie. I got to check that out.
Okay, but yeah, sorry.
Okay,
I was
third
wrong.
movie.
Not
whatever.
the second one.
Not important. Okay, the movie. If you didn't check the title, because the title of the episode's probably already going to say it, or it may not. Who knows? We haven't made that decision yet. But the movie was Tom and Jerry by Tim Story, the new one. So, right. So to give background, for me personally, growing up, like Tom and Jerry was my go-to TV show. Like everyone says, like, okay, this was my childhood. This was my childhood. 80% of my childhood, at the bare minimum, was Tom and Jerry. So like, I don't know a lot of like old TV shows from like 2006, 2007, when like people my age were talking about. But I know like every episode of every Tom and Jerry franchise ever. Like Golden Age Tom and Jerry in like the 50s and 60s, I've seen every episode. The 90s Tom and
All
Jerry
of them.
Kids reiteration, I saw like
When they
10
talk.
episodes. No, they actually don't talk in that one. There's like
Wait.
a bunch of other people that do talk. But
Tom and Jerry don't talk in that one?
no, there was like a TV show in the 90s called like Tom and
Oh,
Jerry
okay, I'm
Kids,
sorry.
which was
I thought you
weird
said the
because it
movie.
was like they had a bunch of side characters that did a lot of talking, but Tom and Jerry themselves never talked. There was that 90s film, which is one of the most nostalgic films for me, which they do
That's
talk.
where they talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they say a lot of funny lines in that movie.
I'm Tom. I'm Jerry.
And then there was like the late 2000s reboot Tom and Jerry show, and then there was like the new 2017-2018 show on Boomerang Tom and Jerry show that I don't watch, so I'm beyond that. And now in 2021 we have Tom and Jerry. And I mean, when I saw it and like when I first said like, okay, they're going to do like a Tom and Jerry movie and it's going to mix live action with animation, I had no expectations because like the movies that always pop to mind when I think about Tom and Jerry, the new 2021 film, is like think the Smurfs and like think Yogi Bear, where it's like, okay, the whole plot of the movie is here is normal human protagonist. Because plot, they're gonna be like have a connection to like this old classic cartoon character that's gonna have
The
a weird
generic brunette
artisan-
guy.
Yeah, exactly. Very generic. Personality free. They come cheap. You can have anyone play this role. No requirements. And it has to be in New York. That's the rule. You can't have it anywhere else. The only one that got away with it was Sonic, because you got to do it in San Francisco, but that doesn't apply. But yeah, it's like with all of these movies, it's just like, okay, here's plot, here's human, here's cartoon characters. They're all the same. They all do like a bunch of like current year references where it's like, okay, it's 2010. Planking's like the new big thing. So like you have a scene or like 2 scenes even where it's like you just have some random guy planking and like it's like, oh, look at me, look at how young and hip I am, and like it ages poorly. And that was like
I don't even know what planking is.
Oh, it was like a trend back in like 2010. I kind of remember it, but like all you would do is you would just like lie flat on your stomach and you would just like you just lay there. That's it. That's planking. Yeah,
That's it.
I
That's
implore
it.
you to look
That's
it
all
up.
you got.
Oh,
I will. Yeah, like the fact that I didn't even know what that is tells you all you need to know about how contemporary and just trend following and transparent these like
yeah,
live action movies are when it comes to that.
right. And like this new Tom and Jerry film is no different. It's like when Michael Pena's in the trailer, it's like, oh, if this gets out on TikTok, I'm like, okay, pack it up, close it down,
Yeah.
cancel the
It's over.
subscription, hit the exit button. I'm
done.
gonna go play Devil May Cry 5 instead. I have better things to do. Like,
I'm gonna go play The Last of Us 2.
yeah, to be fair, it's just like I had no expectations going in. I'm like, they aren't gonna do anything original. They aren't really gonna do anything like interesting or unique or like super standout. And so like I went in with like a really really low bar of expectation, and walking out, it felt like it like hit that bar, but the bar was at like my feet. So I'm like, you didn't even try, and so
I just, good job, but also how dare you?
yeah, because like.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I felt sorry. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. So, like, you want to give your input before, like, we kind of talk about it for a bit?
Yeah, I guess that's probably the best next step. I have not consumed nearly as much Tom and Jerry media as you have. I have seen there is one direct to DVD movie that they made where Tom and Jerry are in a Robin Hood setting and they have to help Robin Hood stop the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that.
Uh-huh.
I remember nothing of it because I saw it when I was 5.
Right.
But like that and a couple of other episodes, like I knew what Tom and Jerry was. I knew their shtick. It's appealingly simple and universal, which is why you shouldn't make it into a movie.
Exactly.
But I never had a strong attachment to it whatsoever.
Right.
So I was not thrilled at all, especially considering the previous live action animation movies that we have. I was not thrilled when I heard that it was being made into that. And when I found out that it was Tim Story, a.k.a. the guy who made the 2 Fantastic Four movies in the 2000s, the rest of my interest basically tanked. And I didn't think it was going to be good at all until I saw the trailer, because it didn't look that good at all, and I didn't know why I was in a hotel. But I liked the blend of kind of 3D, 2D-ish animation with the real world. A la Looney Tunes back in action or something.
Right.
I was words could not describe how happy I was that this was not some sort of terrifying
like 2D crossover
CG,
where like it really like messes with
realistic
the laws of
hybrid
reality or something like that.
Yeah, I was so happy it wasn't that. But then I saw it and it was still terrible.
You didn't get to watch it in glorious 4K on my monitor, so
I guess development history for those of you who are curious, maybe. Live action Tom and Jerry movie was actually announced originally in 2009 after Alvin and the Chipmunks just took the world by storm, I guess. It was originally going to follow the origin story of Tom and Jerry in Chicago, so not New York. So it might have, had we seen the Chicago cut, it might have broken the mold of that New York trope that you were talking about.
You know what's even crazier about that fact you just mentioned with the whole 2009 stuff? I actually remember that as a kid. Like, I remember I was like with my grandma and she was like, "Oh, did you hear the news? They're gonna make a Tom and Jerry movie." And I'm like,
"Yeah!"
And like first grade me was like so ecstatic because like I haven't really been into movies until like recently actually, and I really started to like pick it up and like started kind of like train my critical brain. But like back in the day, I didn't care. But then it's like, they're making a Tom and Jerry movie. It's like, when's it going to come out? It says, oh, soon. But then, like, as I grew up and the years went by, it's like, okay, so I guess that was just all, like, a joke. Maybe it was one of the older movies. But to see it be this and, like, run into it, having, like, grown up, is, like, such an unreal experience that I'm like, you could have been more. But look at where we are now. It's just...
It's interesting. Yeah, they did that. They managed to wrap up the filming before the industry shut down with COVID-19. The animation was done by 3D animators who wanted to implement 2D art styles and kind of movements using 3D animation, so it's kind of got that Spider-Verse thing going around. The work was done remotely during the pandemic, so that's kind of cool. That's all I got. They made this movie. People got paid. The end.
Dive into it? Did we just like try to dive into it and like
Yeah,
discuss our thoughts?
I'm really glad I didn't get a. Is it possible to get an HBO Max free trial for this? Because I just kind of. I feel like you can.
Like, just get like a burner email or something. Just
Yeah,
like plug it
that's
in
true.
for a week. Probably just get to see it. But I mean, it's just kind of hard to like get your opinions out on a movie when there's not really that much to have opinions on to begin with. Like, because okay, like I have a letterbox review on it, and I don't know, maybe I'm just gonna be like regurgitating.
Feel free, it's Tom and Jerry.
But to give an oversight, I gave it a 1 out of 5.
Well, I guess before
but
we
here's
go
the
into
thing,
that, like I guess maybe explain your scale a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair. Give context. So, like, when I usually rate a movie, it's like, okay, this is kind of like my overall experience, and I try to, like, take into account what I think the actual quality of the film was combined with, like, my viewing experience. But this is, like, a weird case because, like, I feel like this was purely based off of movie quality and not viewing experience. Because I wanted to take out viewing experience on account of the fact that I'm really nostalgic for this property, so... And, like, that being said, that's why I was a 1 out of 5. But, like, usually when I use a score system like that, it's like, it can be half a star, 1 star, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, or 5. And usually, like, those stars represent, like, where I stand. So it's like, when I say, like, it's a 4 out of 5, I'm like, okay, yeah, for the most part, I think this is really good, but, like, tweak 1 or 2 things, like, maybe tighten this up a little, and you've got an even better movie. And then when you get something like a 1.5 out of 5, I'm like, okay, yeah. Like, you're pretty much working with a mess here, and it's like the polar opposite, where it's like, okay, maybe if you kept this, keep that storyline, but, like, you completely rewrite these things and rework this with the filmmaking and all that, then you got a good movie. So, and, like, going in with a 1 out of 5 with this movie, like, I think it was purely from, like, a quality of movie standpoint, because to run it down bullet point wise, I just don't have anything really positive to say, because I think the narrative is really boring, because to start out with, Tom and Jerry aren't really the main characters.
Did the movie ever explain what they were doing out of, the house?
No. Yeah, that's the weird thing, because I remember in the marketing, there was, like, this whole thing where it's, like, in the trailer, it's, like, Tom and Jerry, you grew up with it. And it's, like, weird, because it's, like, they have, like, suitcases, and, like, they were leaving, but then it's, like, let's be friends. And then, like, Tom got hit by the bus. So it's, like, wondering, it's, like, okay, there's probably going to be, like, a flashback or something that explains it. But the movie never does that. Like, in the movie, like, Tom's opening scene is just, like, he's sitting on the subway.
Okay, I thought the version that I found just, like, cut out some of it so it wouldn't get taken down.
Yeah, no, that's how it works.
So they really just didn't care.
New York, and then, like, the first thing you see, it's just a sweeping shot of New York, title card, and then it's like, okay, Tom's on a train eating an apple, and there's, like, no build, no nothing, no anything. And then, exactly, and then immediately after, like, the very next scene is like, okay, Jerry has to find real estate in New York, and so he's gonna, like, get, like, a penthouse view and, like, a rundown car's
which I will say,
box. And then it's like, and then there's, like, a joke where it's like, oh, there's a dead body there, and there's, like, a chalk outline. I'm like, okay.
Interesting.
It's just really out of place. And it's weird, because it's like, there's no build-up. It never explains, like, how they know each other. It's like the movie expects you to know the brand and then just appreciate it. Like, there's a joke in the movie, like, when you get with the protagonist lady, they're, like, chasing on a hotel rooftop, and then she's like, stop it, you two. It's like, geez, with all this work you're doing, it's like you have history. But the movie never explains that or gives you any context. It's like it expects you to know Tom and Jerry. And there's no scene that, like, builds that up. Yeah, you were saying?
Okay, yeah. But, like, even if you, like, know Tom and Jerry and are willing to excuse the lack of history built up, I don't even think that's, like, easy. Like, even going beyond that, there are just, like, some things that are difficult to ignore. The biggest thing
Yeah.
behind that being just like the film's inability to kind of take a firm stance on whether or not it wants to be like bound to reality or cartoony in its world.
Right.
I think the biggest teller of that is like the animals in this movie, because there are
Yeah.
it's so weird.
Yeah.
There are some animated animals. There are some animated pets, but then other times there just won't be. Are there real pets?
Yeah. And even then, like, the rules with how it works is, like, so weird, because it's like, okay, so Spike is just like he was in the cartoons, and he can talk. But then there was this other cat that was called, like, Toots, which was a reference to, like, the old cartoon. And it's weird, because, like, in most of the episodes, like, she did talk, but, like, in this one, she doesn't. So, but it's, like, weird, because it's like, okay, why can Spike talk, but not her? And then, like, there was Butch the cat that they threw in there, and he has, like, a completely pointless side plot where it's like, yeah, we run the alleys. If we find you again, we catch you, you're going to pay big time. But that doesn't pay off into anything, so that's really sloppy. The only character, and I would even say the only new idea with the movie, and I'll get into this, but, like, the only interesting or, like, new idea that they try out is, like, Droopy is the Joker. And, like, that takes me by absolute surprise, because, like, in the opening scene, Tom's walking through New York, and you catch in the background, like, there's a picture of just Droopy mimicking the Joker poster. It says, put on a smiling face, and he's just, like, frowning at the, like, the front of the poster. And I'm like,
Yeah, I
why?
don't know.
Like, and it doesn't pay off in anything aside from, like, a cameo, but then, like, there he's Hannibal Lecter, and I'm like, so there's no consistency?
Yeah, it's just like in doing stuff
so,
like that, you're raising so many questions on how this works that just like breaks a viewer's immersion.
Oh, exactly. And like, it gets weirder, too, because it's like, a problem I had was, like, it feels like it doesn't do a good job blending the cartoony stuff with the live-action stuff. Like, even down to the scenes where there's, like, supposed to be that mixture. Like, I'll get into that later, but, like, whenever I see scenes where it's like, okay, a human has to interact with, like, Tom, it's the hotel staff, I'm like it just
looks
feels
like
very
they're talking to a green screen.
Exactly. And it's worse because you have movies like Looney Tunes Back in Action and, like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which do this exact same premise, but they, like, find a way to, while not perfectly execute it, make it more
they can
believable.
make the cartooniness instead of trying to make it a boring live-action movie.
Yeah. Exactly. Which is another problem. Why is the whole narrative, lady must work at hotel?
Oh, yeah. Also, why is the lady, like, the worst?
Yeah, she is genuinely like, it's so awful because she's like, okay, I'm working, like, DoorDash or something, but laundry, because I don't know why.
Yeah.
And so then, like, that's, like, the flimsy excuse to have her connected to Tom and Jerry. And yeah, like, the reason Tom and Jerry, like, fight in this movie, considering they don't give you history, the whole reason is because Tom was, like, trying to make money on the streets, just being, like, a street pianist. But then, like, Jerry's like, okay, I'm gonna, like, be, like, a partner and do, like, dance moves or something. And then Tom's like, no, you don't get half of my profits. And then Jerry's like, okay, I break your keyboard. And that's kind of the only reason they fight. But then that escalates into, okay, we got to get him out of the hotel. But it feels very, very, very poorly, like, put together. And it, like, has no...
thought out.
Yeah. And it's worse because, like, the good Tom and Jerry movies, like, at least, like, they always have that history, but they always do new, interesting ideas with the conflicts. Like, for example, I would say that my favorite Tom and Jerry movie is Tom and Jerry Fast and the Furriest, because I don't want to go too much into that movie, but the whole plot is basically Tom and Jerry accidentally destroy their original home and get kicked out, but then they sign up with not Warner Brothers to go on a race that it was supposed to be from, like, California to Mexico, but then it keeps escalating and escalating until basically it's like a race around the world, and then the winner gets, like, a mansion. But, like, it's so crazy because it has all these, like, actually interesting side characters. Like, there's, like, this hotshot Hollywood macho man. He's like, oh yeah, I drive, like, an 80s Mustang. And then there's just, like, a grandma that's like, I drive an old 1950s convertible. And then there's, like, a literal, like, Karen, but she's actually nice. And it's like, I just drive a minivan, and that's it. And then there's, like, the evil Lord of Darkness from the 9th dimension that just, like, shows up, and he's in the movie.
Is he just,
And
like,
he's
there?
Like, Yeah, he's just there. He's like,
Oh.
oh yeah, I run like a flower shop, and like, it's just like this absolutely crazy, bizarre thing, and Tom and Jerry just get roped into it, and like, you actually are kind of interested in seeing what wacky, bizarre thing they're gonna pull out. And it's even crazier because it's not like, okay, it's just a race. Like, they have to do all this crazy stuff where it's like, okay, your first obstacle is navigating LA traffic, and everyone has all these like different ways, because like they build their cars to like go around these obstacles. Like, Jerry doesn't have to worry about it because he's small, so he can just like drive under the car. But then like Tom builds his car and like it has like a unicycle extension, so he can like drive over it. But then there's also all these other crazy things, like the grandma has like these like granny legs that just pop out of the car and walk over the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eve Lord, the Lord of Darkness, like his car turns into a spider. And then like the Karen's just like, I'm just gonna sit out the traffic and I'll just like wait it out. And she like manages to get through. And it's just like this insanity that's like actually fun to watch and talk about. And like it goes all over the place. Like they have to go through like both the Atlantic and like the Indian Ocean. And there's like an underwater segment. There's like a part in Antarctica. And like there's all these like interesting different locales, and they like try new ideas, and like they actually like take risks.
Mm-hmm.
But then you like juxtapose that with the new 2021 film. It's like, okay, you're in a hotel. Okay, like you got to get rid of him. And it's annoying because the movie itself doesn't try anything new.
It's
because
so yeah.
Exactly. One thing I noticed that I want to point out that I haven't seen someone point out yet is that a lot of the jokes that I notice are actually just straight up one-for-one remakes of jokes from original episodes. Like
the
an
gags.
example, yeah. Well, like an example I found was like, there's this one joke in one of the cartoons where it's like Tom was trying to fish for Jerry, but then he was accidentally like he hooked on a spike and he was trying to like reel him in. But then Jerry's like, oh, if you're gonna like want to catch the fish, like, and it's all told visually, which is really amazing. But it's like, if you're gonna catch that fish, you gotta like knock him unconscious with this club. And he's like, oh, thanks, and he doesn't notice it's Jerry. So like he finally reels in Spike and he starts like beating him over the head with the club in a cartoonish manner. But then he like notices like, oh, that wasn't me, I'm innocent. And then there's this whole joke where it's like there's like a giant bruise on his head, and then Tom tries to like pat it out with the club. But then, and like, it just doesn't work, and then he like resorts to just like hitting him as hard as he can and then runs for it. And like, the movie does that exact same joke. Like, I can go back and find it, and it does that joke literally like one for one exactly how they did it in the original cartoon, except now it's just in this context of the hotel. And it's like, it doesn't try something. It's like, okay, it's Tom and Jerry. You know Tom and Jerry. Go watch it. Like, you're not watching Tom and Jerry 2021 to like find a new interesting take on Tom and Jerry. You're watching Tom and Jerry 2021 just so you can see Tom and Jerry again and just remind you of the stuff that you love. And that I do not want to stand for.
Yeah, and not even that, because the premise itself is so frustratingly restrained in that it's all grounded in reality that even when it does get crazy, it's never too much fun. Like
Yeah.
the scene where Tom, Jerry, and Spike, is that the dog's name?
Yeah, Spike's
Yeah,
the
the
dog.
scene like where they all have their big fight should have been really fun. Isn't. It's just a
Yeah.
giant cloud that looks really awkward and bad that Michael Pena is just sucked into randomly, and it looks
Yeah,
really
that seems
weird and really
awful.
bad. And like
yeah.
that's basically like the peak of the cartoony action up to that point in the movie. And like at that, I will say, I like taking notes during movies that I will talk about later to try and keep track of them and kind of understand what like I want my focus points to be.
Right.
And like when that part happened, I just kind of sort of gave up and just wrote down this is sort of bad and was done with it.
Yeah.
Because it just sounded like it didn't want to try anymore. I don't understand why you would want to make a Tom and Jerry movie like that at all.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's even crazier too, because like that's like a common like cartoon gag back in the day, where it's like, oh, the giant brawl, but it's like a giant like puff of smoke or like cloud or whatnot. Like that's always been a joke, like with old cartoons back in the day. So obviously it wants to like try to emulate that, but it feels so lazy. Like one of the things I vibrantly remember is that Michael Pena was getting like dragged around, and it was like, but it feels so weird because it's like there's all this energy going on with all the animated stuff, but then like Michael Pena's like, oh, I'm like stumbling around, and I'm like, what even? Like, it feels like there's not that connection where the live action plays off with the animated stuff that well. Like, to give a contrast, there's a scene I remember in Looney Tunes Back in Action where like Brendan Fraser is like being messed around with Daffy Duck, and so like he's like stumbling all over the set. But he has like actual commitment in that scene, so like he's like throwing himself into like a door, almost like throws himself over a railing, all while like Daffy's like flying around his head. And so like it helps to add that immersion just a little bit and gets more cartoony. With Tom and Jerry 2021, it has like such a weird clash that it's like two separate movies, and like Tom and Jerry just bring nothing to the table, and the human side of the story is like so painfully generic and boring that I have no semblance of investment.
Borderline uncanny, I tell you. Also,
Oh, indeed.
they didn't bring back my favorite Tom and Jerry character, which is the gray mouse that hangs around Jerry.
Was his name like Nibbles? Like he was in a couple of episodes, but like
Something like that. I
like he's
that
the
guy.
smaller one.
Yeah.
And then he's like Jerry
Has like
always
an
has to help
accent
him
or
out.
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's like
I
a couple
like that guy.
episodes. Yeah, there's like a couple episodes where it's like just like his set in like historical France, like in the 18th century, and then like Jerry and that mouse are just like musketeers, and then like Tom's like the royal guard, and they just get into like a bunch of sword fights.
Mhm.
Like it has actual like creativity, and it's like really short, concise. It's like 7 minutes, but it's always worth that watch.
It's not feature length.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't
Because
feel like it's making stuff up to pad the runtime.
right. Because like think about it this way: divide the movie into like the human side and the Tom and Jerry side. The human side literally just plays like a slideshow. It's like, okay, here's protagonist lady. Protagonist lady is no longer working for the delivery service. Protagonist lady sees new hotel. Protagonist lady lies to another person so she can get her resume, and now immediately works at the hotel. Protagonist lady just walks around and doesn't really do much aside from like be forced to get rid of Jerry, which for the most part,
Yeah, she
is
just kind of
the
awkwardly
conflict-
talks too long until the movie decides it's done with that.
yeah, like the only human conflict in the movie is like this wedding that like has no build up, and it's like weird because it's like, oh, I can't lose my ring, but then like Jerry uses the ring as a lighting fixture, but then they like get rid of that conflict by the end of the second act, so then like they have to like completely botch the third act wedding. It's like, okay, so we were supposed to have the big grandiose wedding, but now the real meaning is that we have the humble wedding. And I'm like, so it's every movie ever made. And I'm like, it just, again, there's no ideas. It just doesn't try.
It's literally
And-
just a wedding, a big fat Greek wedding style movie with a Tom and Jerry backdrop, kind of.
Yeah, and even then, like, the Tom and Jerry stuff isn't fun because I think a lot, like, all of the modern stuff just ruins it completely. Like, we're going to mention TikTok. Oh, Tom flosses.
Tom's
Okay.
gonna flow, yeah.
Yeah, Jerry, like, I'm not sure if you picked it up, and I'm not sure if this was just me going crazy from the initial shock, but, like, 5 minutes into the movie when, like, Jerry first met Tom, he was doing, like, the Orange Justice dance from Fortnite, and I was like, why?
Tom
It's just-
does like, yeah.
And
the
then it's like,
auto-tune.
okay. Yeah, it's like, okay, now we're gonna have, like, drones, and I'm like, just, you
And the
you do
movie.
not understand Tom and Jerry, you understand current trends. Understanding a classic beloved cartoon duo is going to get you miles and miles ahead of understanding the trends of 2021. Because, like I want to see someone, like, watch this movie in, like, 2027. Like, what's this going to look like? Like, what if TikTok just completely fell off? It's, like, no longer around, and, like, no one knows what TikTok is. It's like, what's TikTok? I just am kind of baffled to see how it's just, okay, cash grab. And I know I shouldn't because it's like, that's Hollywood. When does Hollywood try? October
Do they
for
try?
the Oscars. But,
Yeah, it's just,
and there's just,
it's like I don't even have a strong attachment to Tom and Jerry, and this was still a frustrating movie to get through.
yeah, like, I wouldn't say my attachment to Tom and Jerry is, like, the strongest thing ever, but, like, they easily defined a good, if not most of my childhood.
Yeah,
But,
because-
like, to see
yeah.
me move along, I'm like, I kind of just don't even think this movie even, like, still exists. Like, after Fast and the Furious, no more Tom and Jerry movies. Like,
Stop.
I just don't even, like, I don't even think it's a Tom and Jerry movie, because, like, how long do they even show up?
I don't know. I was trying to put myself in the shoes of like a kid that loves Tom and Jerry that got their hands on this, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking about like that through that lens, like I would have been so bored for
Yeah,
most of the movie.
because most of the movie is just human conflict, and I'm like, it's not called whatever her name is featuring Tom and Jerry. It's Tom and Jerry. It's an obvious sucker to get people to like, oh, it's gonna have Tom and Jerry, so it's obviously gotta have Tom and Jerry. If it has in the title, it's gotta obviously have it in the movie. And yeah, it does, but like, it just feels so like wrong to watch them like just like do random hotel shenanigans, but then like listen to like a modern like score in the background. I'm like, this is just so wrong on a different level that you shouldn't have even made it like this. Like, why not try something, say the Lego movie, where like you try an actual genuine idea, but you use Tom and Jerry as that vessel. Put effort into making this movie and then give it to me. Don't just churn out a cash grab and then put it on HBO Max for a month and then rip it off.
Yeah, or you can go in the opposite direction. If you don't care enough to like come up with a good idea, then fine. But then what you can also do is like, I don't know, maybe take a page from Sponge Out of Water and just make it complete nonsense that captures the essence of the show perfectly. Like there are so many different venues that you can take this down, and you literally chose
Yeah.
the worst option.
Exactly.
It's completely transparent, manipulative, and lazy, and it just
Oh,
didn't
definitely.
care enough to like do anything beyond this will get us like, I don't know, 200 million. We'll
Yeah.
see. People know Tom and Jerry. We'll just
Right.
make some money, and that's lame.
It feels like, yeah, it just feels like a cash grab. And it's like,
Yeah,
and I know,
hate-
like,
yeah.
like, oh, shocker, cash grab, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, this is their game. And it's really just kind of frustrating because you see stuff like Sponge Out of Water, and like, you can try ideas. You could have like made this whole movie just a gigantic 90-minute long Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Yeah, and maybe have a plot in there, or maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't
like-
know. Just like don't waste my time with all like the not Tom and Jerry stuff that doesn't
Yes.
matter at all and doesn't try anything.
Yeah,
Like,
it
there's
could have
literally
literally
no
just
reason.
been 90 minutes of just random slapstick gags. You probably couldn't even have a plot, and you still would make a better movie.
Yeah,
Like-
literally all of your writers that did this could have just written Tom and Jerry shenanigans for 90 minutes, and like
And you make a better
they
film.
would have saved more effort, and they would have written a better Tom and Jerry movie than the one we got here.
Exactly. And it's just, and that's the thing, like, there's not really anything to say more about this film. It has no ideas. It falls on so many tropes, cliches, and current trends that are going to age horribly. You're going to look
Mm-hmm.
back on this film in like 3 years, and it's just really just not going to sit well. It's not going
Mm-hmm.
to hold that test of time, and it's going to be pretty much lost to history, and no one's going to care about it. I feel like people aren't even talking about it. Like,
They aren't.
Yeah, like it came out, what, 2 weeks ago?
Something like
And it's
that.
like, it feels like we're late to the party even talking about this. Like, we're giving it we're the last people ever to talk about this movie.
It will be erased from the archives of history following
The
March
end.
6th, 2021.
Oh,
Ah.
it's like Mario on March 31st.
Mm-hmm. Also, they have so many like awkward cameos of characters from the show, like you mentioned, Spike,
Yeah,
the
Droopy,
Thug Cat.
Butch.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's just
again,
like literally the worst possible combination of what they could have
Yeah.
done. And as mad as like we are talking about it, there's still just like not a lot to talk about at all. It's just not
Right.
good in any
it's just
way.
filler.
Well, that's the
Like-
lie. It's not. I liked like you mentioned, like all the little homes Jerry has throughout the
Mhm.
movie, like the glove box and like the little hole in the wall. I kind of like
Mhm.
that. It was fun seeing that in live action, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, not amazing, not really like anything super worthwhile, but compared to
yeah,
like the
no.
rest of this movie, like, we'll take anything at this point.
Yeah, it was like, oh, there's a nice little visual detail that I could look at for like 6 seconds and be interested in it.
Okay, I'm gone now.
Yeah, moving on. And then I guess this movie's not good, but I can give it props for not going down the horrifying CG realistic hybrid thing that most of these terrible movies usually do. This could have been
Right.
like another Garfield sort of thing, but it wasn't. So I can respect that.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
the guys who animated this actually cared.
yeah, like I guess that's the one thing to say is like the animation itself, which I would probably argue is the best thing about the 2021 film.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I
it
mean,
is.
it's not like, yeah, like I wouldn't say it's like some standout animation, no, but like it's fine. Like it's not like like when this like first got revealed, the internet broke like with how bad it was. Like it's just adequate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it finds a way to take the sort of the 2D style and give it like a bit of a modern splash to it.
Mm-hmm.
So watching it unfold on screen wasn't awful by any stretch, but it could have been better. And
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't pan out when you have to mix the live action like Michael Pena or the lead actress with like Tom and Jerry, because like it feels like they just don't commit enough with like the physical slapstick, like especially with Michael Pena because he gets the most physical slapstick when it comes to the cartoon stuff. Like he gets like pulled around a lot, but it feels like he's just staggering around, not like getting like yanked around. If you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
So, I mean, the animation itself, it's not bad.
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
got
really
some.
gonna be thinking about it.
They got some fun, like Tom's face morphs into an iron when Jerry smacks him with the iron, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
like
I don't know, it's kind of fun seeing like 2D characters interact a real world environment, like the hotel scene, even though the song
Yeah.
playing in the background is awful.
exactly.
Like
The one thing
like
oh, sorry.
Oh, it's just like realistic stuff like that mixed in with
Yeah.
like cartoons affecting it. It's fun to watch, in my opinion. So
Of
that was
course.
kind of nice. Novel.
Like, the one thing I remember, like, I think the one thing that made this movie a 1-star for me was there was a sequence where like Tom had like this Rube Goldberg machine, but it was like all with like
The trap Jerry.
live action elements. Which is interesting because like there was like I bet there was a whole episode where he's like, okay, I'm gonna make like this crazy mouse trap, but like actually kind of seeing it like in live action was like, yeah, why couldn't you just like try to incorporate that more?
Yeah, like lean a little bit more into like that
Yeah.
live action meets 2D kind of like lunacy. That would make me happy.
Blend in the elements of the cartoon. Side of the
Yeah,
story
commit to the
with
bit.
realistic stuff.
Commit
and
to
like
the
find
bit.
a way to tell like a cartoonish story in a realistic environment, like something like that.
Really
Whatever
Looney
you
Tunes
do, cut
enough
out
if
the
you're going
music
for that.
because the music was bad. It was terrible.
Again, very like trend chasing. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I get what you're
generic
saying.
Stock music, even I would think.
Oh, really? Yeah, I wouldn't
I mean,
be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a guess in the dark, but I don't have to try because these guys clearly didn't.
Yeah, and I guess one could defend this movie by saying, well, if you're so smart, you write a Tom and Jerry movie where they go to a hotel.
Well,
Which
I will.
to that I say, I don't write this movie, and it's never made. Problem solved.
I remember
So
that. Oh
there.
yeah. No, it's even crazier because like a closing note on that was like in the 2009-2010 show, it was weird because it was like it kind of did what they did, but like put some new like twists and narratives in there. There was an episode where the whole plot is like Tom works as like a bellhop at a hotel, and the stuff they do in that episode was way more creative. Like there was a joke where it's like he's like doing he's like delivering baggage, but then Tom sees Jerry in the hallway, so he tries to like run him over with like the baggage trolley. But it backfires and then like all the luggage gets mixed up, so like he scrambles and like tries to repack everything. But then he gets down to the lobby and he realizes he's gone horribly wrong because it's like everyone got all of their stuff mixed up. So like there's a guy in a dress and there's like a girl in a business suit and it's like all mixed up. And so yeah, and then there's like all this other crazy stuff, like they do something at the pool. And like it actually like used its hotel location in that one episode. But then I don't even get why you needed a hotel in the film.
Well, I don't know. It's like a very
Just
generic blank
generic.
slate setting that you can just kind of insert any plot, like, a wedding into, and make it work. So I guess like they just kind of gravitated towards that.
could have
because,
done
like,
Tom
they
and
had
Jerry
the
go
studio.
to Comic-Con.
Yeah,
But
I
that would be
I
cool.
don't know. I'm very impressed. You know your Tom and Jerry lore well.
Oh. Tom and Jerry Fast and the Furious sits in my analogs of most nostalgic films that I should revisit one day to see if they hold up.
That's fair. But yeah, Tom and Jerry 2021, not a great film.
Not good. 1 out of 5.
2. 2 out of 10.
Go watch something better.
Yeah.
Just you as an individual. I'm glad if you've made it this far. Maybe you skipped here, but you as an individual, I know you're a smart person. You can go out there. You can watch quality stuff, good movies, good shows, or if you want, you can watch this movie. You're not missing out on anything.
You can try for like 5 seconds half-heartedly and then give up and then go watch something else.
No,
like,
that's what you get, like an out of context YouTube video where it's like Tom and Jerry 2021 out of context. Just watch that and like you'll get the same experience because they clearly didn't try with this screenplay or
out of context. YTP experience is better than like the no experience that this one offered. So
yeah, but I don't really have anything else that's popping in mind.
Yeah, I don't have anything else either.
Yeah, I mean,
HBO Max has had like 2, I don't know, not
they've had
that
3
good movies that I've seen.
They've had 3 movies and like I've only seen 2 of their like HBO exclusive released movies, but from the 2
hopefully
I've seen,
it doesn't spell for the future.
Yeah, don't ruin Kong Godzilla. But like, if
Big monkey.
Tom and Jerry 2021 and
You want to know how they can
Woman
ruin
1984 or anything to go off of, then hopefully there's a turnaround.
You want to know you were saying? You want to know how they can ruin Kong v Godzilla?
Godzilla win?
Not have Kong win. That's how you ruin Kong v Godzilla.
No, you want to know how you ruin Kong v Godzilla? Because I'm going to call it now.
You mean some unprecedented threat's going to show up in the mid-second act and they're going to team up to defeat it?
Exactly. Like, the footage they're showing is like the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then someone, like, they're going to have like, air quotes, like, you know how like in superhero movies it's like, okay, there's like the midway fight, and then there's like the second act low point, and then there's like the finale?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in like the halfway point, like there's going to be like a 4-minute fight between Kong and Godzilla. And then someone, I don't know, like something's just going to interrupt them and like beat both of them. And then they like both on their own terms beat up that threat. And it's like, I'm not going to fight you. And then they just do their own thing. I'm calling it now. Don't.
And then Godzilla's going to die and Kong's going to have to bring him back to life using a cube in the next movie. It's going to be a whole thing.
What color is the cube? Is it blue?
Perhaps. Jeez, we already forgot about Tom and Jerry.
we in like the span of a minute and a half, we've jumped from Tom and Jerry to Kong Godzilla.
Can you blame us? Can you blame us?
Well, no. You gotta blame the screenwriters because they clearly didn't put any effort into
Zero.
that film. Nada.
But yeah, that's that. I guess we did it. We don't really have anything else to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, like, maybe here we could do something where it's, like, questions in the comments. Obviously, we can't do it this episode.
Not right now, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, we're open. We have literally completely open lines. You can send us questions at our letterboxed pages or the comment section.
Not that we're going to have, like, a regular uploading schedule. But that's worth noting.
Right. Like, we have no idea when our next one is. Like, it's probably going to be a couple of weeks. But, like, who knows? It may even be a month, but
we will see.
I mean, I just hope we can stay consistent. Try as hard as we can.
I hope we can keep this going until
definitely.
The end of COVID.
I'd love to keep this going.
Oh, yeah. Until the end of COVID, at least.
At least to July. To July. So.
But yeah, I guess if there's oh no. But I guess if there's nothing else that needs to be said,
this is where we sign off.
All right. Well, thank you again, guys. Again,
thank you.
This has been Sam and Grant's private screening, and be it vaccine or high virus, we will be coming to you as often as we can to talk more about everything entertainment during this 21st century pandemic. But thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Stay safe. Stay warm. Enjoy snacks. Enjoy life. Find something good. Find your favorite series, be it a movie, a show, or a game, or whatnot. Enjoy it, and I just hope you have an absolutely great time.
Yeah, and remember to have fun. Otherwise, what's the point?
That's what Reggie said at Nintendo.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah. So this is us signing off.
And 3,
I hope 2,
2, 1.
Penguins.
I'm Tom. I'm Jerry.